Thank you everyone for joining us as we discuss why CIOs need Proptech now more than ever. I'm Edward Wagoner and I'm the digital CIO at JLL Technologies. JLL Technologies is the division of JLL that's focused on accelerating innovation in commercial real estate. We bring together an end-to-end portfolio of real estate technology products and services under the same umbrella, from business intelligence platforms to smart office solutions to leading edge Proptech startups. Back in January, it was a great time to be in commercial real estate and Proptech especially. People were really interested in the technologies and products, both products and services that could help them drive more value from their real estate and deliver better experiences to we humans that used that space. Then COVID-19 hit. That challenged all of us. We're all rethinking business operations and we're embracing our next normal for how and where work gets done. I've always thought Proptech was important, obviously, but historically my CIO counterparts have not been as focused on implementing and managing Proptech until now. Technology has never been more important than it is in our next normal and helping us to create, manage, and maintain those healthy and safe workplaces. The pandemic underscored the need for technology in commercial real estate to be a part of that broader technology strategy, and now more than ever, Proptech's becoming a priority for CIOs. To explore this trend, we have a few industry-leading experts who will share their own unique perspectives. I'm joined by Dan Ryan, CEO and co-founder of VergeSense, Lynn Patzner, account executive for JLL Technologies, and Kitty Sullivan, director of investment with JLL Spark. Thanks, guys, for joining. Let's jump right in. Lynn, in your role, you work with a who's who of corporate real estate groups. And I know that one of the top questions you've got to be hearing from every business leader right now is, how can we prepare office spaces to maintain the safety and health of our employees? So what do these conversations look like with your clients, and who are the decision makers that are emerging in these conversations?
Eddie, the decision makers are coming from different areas. Typically, we would work with the corporate real estate groups, but now we're also then working with IT, HR, and factoring in all of those as the decision makers when it comes to employee health and safety. So one of the primary items they're looking at is occupancy density, taking a look at their space management systems, really understanding how many people can they safely bring back to the office, and not just from a building perspective, but certain floors, certain work areas, whether if it's not the traditional workstation, but maybe the common areas or any of the areas within the floor, and making sure that they have the appropriate foot traffic amounts, minimizing congestion, really taking another look at that. But with all the planning, with all the signs, directing traffic, directing that traffic flow, you're still going to need to have that real-time data. And the best way to do that, our clients are finding, is through sensors. Being able to get that real-time feedback of how are people actually using the space. Are people adhering to the social distancing protocols? Are they exceeding the thresholds that you can set? You can use that sensor technology to set how many people should be in a certain conference room or in certain common areas or just within a certain floor, and making sure that you're getting that live feedback so that you can mitigate the risks as quickly as possible. One other item that I see clients looking at is that loop between the space booking, the room reservation booking tool sensors, and the service request, and having that loop be automated so that it's something you want to communicate to your employees so they know that you're doing that, but that it's happening automatically. So when they book a space, whether it's a flexible workspace or a conference room, they have the sensors to tell them when it's being used, when it's vacated. As soon as it's vacated, they know that the system is automatically pushing a ticket to service request to get that space clean, sanitized, and then it becomes available again to the population to reserve and reuse. But again, it's automating that and making it, even though it should, be something that they don't have to think about, you do want to communicate to them and let them know that this is all happening behind the scenes, and these are investments that employers are making for their safety and well-being.
That's great feedback, Lynn. And, Dan, listening to Lynn, the capabilities of your product basically went from a nice to have pre-COVID to, as Lynn just outlined, a must have. Given that, how are the business leaders that you're seeing using VergeSense to reimagine space planning and occupancy and meet the needs that Lynn just outlined that we're hearing from clients?
Yeah, sure. Definitely not something that we ever anticipated. We did not have any occupancy alerting or social distancing related features on the product roadmap. But as soon as COVID really hit, and after customers had a chance to kind of catch their breath after that, that initial month of March when there was a lot of uncertainty in the market, and people started to look at the tools that they had around the table and say, hey, how can I take this data and then apply it to help my employees come back to work safely? How can I use sensor data to automate cleaning schedules, to integrate with room booking systems, to have a more touchless interface, or to eliminate touch in the office? So we definitely saw a dramatic uptick in interest. And it's one that we hope is over as soon as possible. But by the way, we're definitely trying to respond and service our customers during this period. But the other sort of interesting dynamic that I think you're seeing with COVID is that it's sort of accelerating these trends around remote work and dynamic workplaces that were already in motion. Now that we've all spent 3-4 months working remotely, a lot of our customers are now thinking about, what does my future office need to look like? What if my employees are only coming to the office 2-3 days a week versus 5 days a week? What does it mean for my sort of regional real estate strategy? So we think that trend is one that's going to endure for quite a bit of time. And in that type of environment, we think the need for data is going to be greater than ever. Because the spaces are going to be more dynamic than ever. And then the type of experience that you need to deliver to your occupants, the bar is going to be much higher, because I like my home office most of the time. Some of us want to get out a little bit, but there needs to be a really compelling reason to actually go visit the physical environment, rooted in collaboration primarily, but then the demands on the quality of the air, the quality of the amenities in the space, the quality of the overall experience, I think, are going to be much higher. And we think that's the sort of post-COVID sort of new normal, this new way of working that's going to stick around for quite some time.
That's Lynn and Dan, you're both saying faster data. Our offices are going to change. We need to deliver better experiences. Kitty, I'm going to come over to you with that feedback, and knowing that planning and occupancy are big priorities right now. As a VC, I know you're looking at leading startups every day. What are some of the more compelling technologies that you're seeing that address some of these needs that Lynn and Dan are talking about?
Yeah, well, I mean, certainly VergeSense is one of them. In terms of the kind of categories of technology that we're excited about to address this crisis, there are sort of 3 main buckets we're looking at. The first are solutions that are making environments more sanitary and clean. So everything from robotic bathroom cleaners that can operate fairly autonomously within a restroom environment, to instrumentation of washrooms to let you know when soap is out, or if there have been a certain number of flushes that would trigger a cleaning need, as well as indoor air quality solutions, that some of which are actually in pilots right now to determine the extent to which they can filter out COVID and actually neutralize it in environments, which is obviously very exciting. A second category are solutions that are reducing the kind of risk of contagion or transmission, so you're not having to interact with the built world as much. So this would entail keyless entry and access control solutions, visual tours. So if you're looking for a new space, you can really kind of replicate the experience at home. Space utilization and monitoring solutions like VergeSense. And then the third bucket are solutions that are really improving the communication experience, especially for distributed teams. So much around how can we make workflows better for these diverse stakeholders that are kind of scattered across the country or world. So these are all areas in which there's a lot of investment activity in startups that are operating in order to bring this innovation to kind of alleviate some of these pain points of the pandemic.
Yeah, and just to build on that a little bit, one thing that we see a lot of is a lot of focus on integration of different solutions to deliver kind of a unified offering to a customer. So, a couple of things that we've seen, I mentioned touchless, right? So there's a lot of existing touch screens in a lot of offices that provide room booking capabilities. Well, in this world, touch is the enemy. We don't want a lot of, touch surfaces, shared surfaces. So one of the things we've done with some partners in the space, including folks like Robin and team and others, is that we integrate the sensor data with the room reservation system, such that when you walk into a room, you're automatically checked in, the meeting starts, the room appears as occupied. You don't have to kind of manually touch a screen, and that's been one. Another one that we announced recently is with a company called OpenPath and Access Control. And the idea there is that we're measuring with the VergeSense platform the occupancy of the building, so how many people are in the building or on the floor or in a room. And then if you are an employee attempting to enter the building with OpenPath, we can alert you if the building is approaching its occupancy limit. Or if you're sort of the building owner, you could actually deny access once a building has actually gone beyond the allowed safe guidelines from the local government regulations around occupancy. So I think there's a ton of really interesting opportunities once you kind of combine these best in breed solutions and then kind of join them together and integrate them to deliver a more holistic, better experience for customers.
That's great feedback, Dan. And Lynn, we're going to have a lot of new products to talk to clients about that Kitty just outlined. And as I think about that and all these new things, and Dan, I'm going to ask you this question. What would you tell us that we would explain to CIOs and real estate groups about the importance of having a holistic technology strategy for managing space, for implementing the technologies that you and Kitty talked about? And then how should data factor into that strategy with all of this new data that we're integrating in and looking to use? How would you tell us to talk to a CIO about that?
Yeah, so on the subject of data, it's sort of data is garbage in, garbage out, right? And so the quality of the data that you're using to make decisions is really important, and that's something that when we started VergeSense, we sort of focused very heavily on, which is like, how can I deliver a highly accurate data stream at a very low cost position relative to all the other techniques that people were using to gather data about space utilization, which sort of before sensors is primarily people walking around with clipboards and iPads. Maybe you're looking at badge swipe data, maybe Wi-Fi data, but usually there's a limited set of decisions you can make with that data set versus the type of rich data set that you'll get. So quality is important. And then on the subject of like a standard technology strategy, this is something that companies are kind of continue to come around with. We sell to a lot of big global enterprises with maybe multiple sort of like regional real estate initiatives, multiple types of facility management strategies. And I think if you're looking at what am I going to do across my whole portfolio, and you're trying to scale a solution, having standards in place that can be rolled out is super important. And we've seen more of a trend amongst some of our bigger customers to actually consolidate their real estate technology decisions under kind of one group, as opposed to having them made kind of regionally by the local facility manager. There's also another kind of point to that, which I think ties into this future of work story, which is there's a lot of conversation around people having a lot more mobility in the workplace, right? So maybe I'll go to the JLL office in Chicago, and then eventually maybe I'll be able to travel. Someday we'll be able to travel again, but maybe I might do a trip to another regional office or one nearby. And you want to have sort of a consistent experience for those occupants throughout all of the facilities as well. So, and I think as work becomes more mobile, that's also going to be another important thing. And then, as it relates to digital tools, I think that's like times 10 with digital collaboration tools. Having standardization to enable people to sort of effectively communicate and work together is a huge topic.
Yeah, I think we're going to see that digital strategic roadmaps that clients have, being able to understand everything that they should potentially do and then prioritize when they do it, but not leave out integration or their data standards to make sure that the data can flow through the apps and they can all work together. And speaking of all those apps that are coming out, CIOs, we get hit with tons of technologies. We're all familiar with marketing emails that we get, and especially as CIOs are starting to focus on Proptech for the first time, a lot of them, they're all looking for tools that will help them run their businesses more efficiently, especially as we have more people working remotely, or as Dan mentioned, people need that consistent experience when they go through. So Kitty, I'm going to come over to you because I know part of your job is looking at and anticipating trends. I know I'm always trying to find out what you're looking at and what the next big thing will be. So here it goes live. There's a lot of CIOs that are just starting to focus on Proptech. So how would you advise them if I were a new CIO, newly focused on Proptech and searching for proper new technologies to implement? What advice would you give me about where to focus and things to think about?
Yeah, I think my advice would be you've got to walk before you can run. And so to kind of get your house in order, I think an IWMS or integrated workplace management system is really kind of your first must-have if you're just starting off on your journey. And that helps enable, kind of basics around portfolio and lease management and your space planning of like who's sitting where, which is increasingly relevant, especially if you're trying to understand how many people need to be in the office or wanting to get into a hot desking kind of model. Move management, just sort of the basics of people in spaces and where they are and forecasting. And then if you're kind of ready to advance beyond that, you can look into more sophisticated solutions around data collection. So sensoring and instrumenting your environment, again, VergeSense, great example of that, to better understand utilization and occupancy, getting more, investing more heavily in workplace experience. So, JLL's Jill product, which enables easy facilities requests, you can see when the next shuttle's coming, what's on the menu for lunch, and other health and wellness technologies to improve the employee experience. So, improving indoor air quality, offering amenities like fitness classes, or there's a lot of solutions out there that are, acknowledging that workplace experience is increasingly becoming a differentiator for employers and a draw for talent. And in the war for talent, you've really kind of got to keep up with the Joneses, as they would say.
And the Experience app that you mentioned, it's a great way as people are coming back to the office and they're uncertain, they're unsure, they need information, they're fearful. That's a great way to communicate and use all that data that Lynn and Dan were talking about to communicate with people, allow them to communicate and transform some of that fear into trust in the workplace. Lynn, going to come back over to you with this next one. I mean, you and I have been working together for a while, and you and I both know Proptech was rapidly growing even before COVID hit, but it's literally exploded with interest. Everybody's looking at how do I leverage this capability in my next normal workplace. So how are you advising the clients that you're working with as they evaluate all of these different solutions and helping them determine the ones that are right for their particular business and industry?
Mm-hmm. So a lot of ways that when I work with clients is there's going to be a piece of their culture that comes into play. And a lot of this is driven by CIOs, and where are they looking for those enterprise tools? Because you have it where there are certain IT departments that want to look for enterprise tools, have less solutions, have more capability captured within one system. Like Kitty had referenced the IWMS tools. We work with a lot of them as far as iOffice, Archibus, IBM Tririga. And the way that we help clients focus on which one is right for them is taking a deeper look at the modules within each of those applications and understand which ones are important, significant for their businesses, and then take a look at that functionality. So some of those IWMS actually don't have a lease component. They don't have lease administration, lease management. So if that's a huge component, it's going to drop out the IWMS systems that don't have that functionality. But the other thing too that clients really like about IWMS, and we're going to go back more on data, but it holds that data in a consistent manner within the core. So as they grow with the IWMS solution, so a lot of clients I have maybe start with one or two modules. Maybe they start with space and they start with lease. They set up that core data, and core data meaning locations, geography, people, organizations, all of that. And they set it up in a manner of knowing that if they roll out capital projects, if they roll out facility operations, if they want to integrate with building automation systems, they do it in a manner that the data looks like for like and is going to be used consistently. And it just makes that getting, to Dan's point, garbage in, garbage out, it makes that process so much easier. But I do have clients, and I have worked for clients in the past, that they have that I want the best in class application for each significant business need. And you do see that. And when that comes into play, that data piece and that coordination organization is even more important, because now everything looks a little different in every system, and you're going to have some overlap, and you're going to have data attributes that maybe don't align as well. But at some point, we all know that we have to get that data to talk to each other, whether it's through APIs, advanced cloud technology, however we make the data speak. We want to put some thought into how we set up those applications so that we can integrate it with ease and have that long-term operation of those systems, the maintenance of those systems make sense, and that people can continue to use them as they grow and mature with those systems. So either way, again, we go back, take a look at what fits their culture best, and then what is that long-term strategy for them.
Making the case for that digital roadmap, no matter
Absolutely.
what strategy they may take for their implementation. Dan, I'm going to ask you a question next, and this may surprise a lot of people that I'm going to ask this question to the CEO of a Proptech company, because usually, you're going to say, oh, my product's easy to implement. But from your perspective, what roadblocks could CIOs face when it comes to deployment of new technology, and what challenges would you say would be unique to CIOs in real estate that they consider as they look at some of these new technologies?
Yeah. Of course, we say ours is easy, but to hit on major challenges and sort of speak a little bit about kind of how we've tried to solve those challenges is that whenever you're rolling out an IoT product specifically, you're dealing with the real world, right? You're deploying hardware in physical environments. That hardware needs to be installed, maintained, supported. It needs to be connected. It needs to be secure, right? So we've invested a ton in data privacy, security, penetration tests, SOC 2 Type 2. There's a whole slate of things that any provider, vendor in this space. These are just things that you need to invest in organizationally to have a secure product. The typical main challenges are, how do you roll a solution out at scale, right? So how do I not do, most of our engagements will start with a building or a subset of a building, but how do you go from there to doing a campus, to doing thousands of sensors, millions of square feet, right? And that takes typically a pretty tight partnership between everybody in the real estate function, the IT team, and the vendor, whoever the vendor is, whether us or somebody else. And then with that, you need boots on the ground that can actually deploy the product, install it. Then if something goes wrong, what's the support? One area we invest a lot in is deployment tools, right? So you want really nice tools that allow people to actually install, support, and service the units at scale. And then and the last thing, going back to sort of the data component of the solution, making sure that there are well-documented APIs into the system that can pull data out and serve it and format it in a way that's going to be digestible to the end user. One specific thing that we run into a lot with a lot of engagements, since we were just talking about IWMS, is that IWMS typically is the source of truth for floor plans and then line of business data, right? And then eventually lease administration data and sort of portfolio data. So a big part of what we do with many customers is that we'll do integrations. We've got integrations with iOffice, with SaraView, Space IQ as well, a whole bunch of IWMS platforms, and making sure that the VergeSense data kind of seamlessly integrates with the IWMS data for the purpose of really rich analytics is another kind of big thing that we need to nail early on in the program process. So it's a variety of different things, but ultimately rooted in security, data quality, and then cost of deployment and cost of support and maintenance.
So you hit all of my key points with that, and it's great to hear the CEO of a Proptech company, actually outlined that, which means we have more successful implementations when people have thought those things through. So Lynn, I'm going to come back over to you. As you work with clients that are adopting Proptech solutions like VergeSense, where they've thought through these implementation opportunities, challenges, risk mitigation, what are some of the most compelling and impactful implementations that you're seeing, and how would you advise CIOs to measure the success of a pilot or an implementation as they're considering some of these?
One of my favorite cases to reference is it was for a global pharmaceutical firm. They implemented VergeSense, and they were doing it primarily, it was pre-COVID, so they were doing it primarily for occupancy, understanding how utilized was their space. So very, base use case, very common use case. And they deployed it, and what was surprising is that they found that on average, real time, their space was less than 40% occupied. So it gave their real estate leaders that firm decision making power to say, listen, we have clear data and we need to reduce our portfolio. Here's some cost savings. Here's some daily operational cost savings. And it was a great win for them. On the other side, one thing that wasn't important at the time, but has now become important in the post-COVID reentry world, is through VergeSense, they were able to notice that people were twice as likely to use the stairs than an elevator. And as we know, elevator space, stairwell space, it's space that we want people to feel is being sanitized, that it's safe for them to use. The great thing about stairwells is in a non-emergency situation, now you can direct traffic so that people can maybe use one stairwell for going up the floors, another stairwell for going down, really control that flow. And then also the elevators, they just know that if they were to close the elevators or really restrict the use, it's not going to be as much of a disadvantage for their employees just because they had such a high rate of people using the stairwells. And again, it wasn't something that at the time when they deployed VergeSense that they thought was important, but now that's becoming really beneficial data for them and how they're approaching their reentry plan. So it was a great success story for them. A few of the different use case success metrics that CIOs should be taking a look at when they're looking at VergeSense and other sensor systems is, are you able to capture accurately? How accurate are you able to capture the data of the people, in a building, on a floor, in a defined zone? As we know, if you just want to look at people in a certain space, or sitting at a certain table at a certain time, it's only going to give you kind of one point of data. But if you really want to know how people are circulating through the floor and using certain defined areas on a floor, that's something that VergeSense does really well, and I think does better than most of the competitors, and being able to give that precise data and feedback. So, again, wanting to take a look at what does that output look like after you've done your implementation, and to what level are you getting that data back? And then the metrics and the reporting capabilities, the analytics capabilities. What is that you're getting back out? What are those measurements that people are wanting to see and wanting to determine, what measures success for reentry or for long-term utilization, or for how you're using the space. So when certain companies, certain clients, they like to play around with their space layouts. Maybe one floor has more of an open floor concept. One floor has the traditional workstations. And you can use that sensor data to depict on how people are using that space. I know that when I used to work in an office, I would gravitate towards the open workspace, right? And there were often times where it was overpopulated and people love to gravitate towards that space. And so that sensor data really helps to have leadership see how that space is being used and on a real-time basis. And again, it's providing that, success measurements, assuming that that's what they're looking for as the outcome.
And, as we see our next normal and people adapt to virtually what we learn every day, coupled with the fact that a lot of companies are seeing a lot more flexibility, having that data, being able to react and change your space to meet those emerging needs is going to be so critical. Speaking of those emerging needs, Kitty, I'm going to come back, and I keep trying to figure out exactly as a VC what you're looking at, and you're not giving us any company names, but maybe you can tell us the next big thing in Proptech. Is it going to be artificial intelligence or machine learning, augmented reality, virtual reality? What do you think will take precedence in the coming years as offices reopen, businesses settle into the new normal? Looking for a little bit of a prediction here.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually a relatively easy question, at least for me. I feel quite confident in saying that AI it's already a big thing, and it's a tsunami wave that's only getting stronger over time. I'd say the majority of pitches I look at, incorporate AI in some shape or form, although some are more artificial intelligence, more AIE than others. The three areas where we're seeing the most value that's being unlocked by artificial intelligence are in, first of all, automating manual work, or for lack of a better term, grunt work. So taking things off people's plates that are just repetitive and sort of low cognitive impact that will enable, employees in the workforce to really up-level their skills, focus on things where they can deliver better value. Lisa AI is an example of a leasing assistant that handles communications and scheduling on behalf of tenants and residents. AI is also driving faster and better quality decisions, especially those that involve a ton of number crunching. So Skyline AI, one of our portfolio companies, uses deep learning and a variety of proprietary and third-party data sets to better underwrite CRE assets. And then thirdly, more for occupiers, it's helping create environments that are safer and more energy efficient and more comfortable for tenants. So example being security video analytics that are tapping into existing security camera infrastructure to better monitor the environment for potential people that shouldn't be in a workplace or site, or detection of threats, or even firearms, as well as technologies that are actually autonomously operating HVAC systems to better ensure tenant comfort, as well as improve the energy efficiency of buildings, which is also helping to achieve sustainability goals. So overall, net pretty bullish on AI for the coming years.
Lots for us to be watching coming from your team as you evaluate different technologies and make those investments, and we get to talk about them with clients. And so with that, lastly, I'd like to get everybody's perspective on your view of the role of technology in the new workplace, and any trends or predictions that you'd like to make and share with our audience. I'll start with you first, Lynn, and we'll go around the video.
The one trend that I am excited to see, it's already been growing, is the flexible workspace. We've already seen that growing, but now we're going to see it grow more. I firmly believe that we will, especially because when you look at the surveys of all the employees that have been working from home, their biggest concern about one of their biggest concerns besides safety and well-being is the commute. Having to do that commute again is really daunting for them. And so to have that flexibility to work from home, a couple days a week, they miss the interaction, the collaboration with their peers, their coworkers. But I think Dan had mentioned earlier, needing to do that 5 days a week. I think we all seen that that's not necessary in a lot of jobs. And so finding that balance and seeing employers really gravitate towards that flexible workspace model, I think will help in again, the attraction of new talent and retaining talent as well. I think that's going to be a driving force.
Excellent. Thank you. Kitty?
Yeah, to add to that, I would say I think the trend of flexibility from the perspective of the tenant-landlord relationship is also going to accelerate, with employers not wanting to get locked into longer-term leases due to all of this uncertainty. So we're going to see ongoing downward pressure on lease durations. As for another trend, I think experiential products and solutions will be increasingly important. It's not just about function, but users are bringing their kind of consumer level expectations, if you will, to the workforce and enterprise. And so it's just as much about, the user friendliness and the interface and compatibility and just the ease of use that will drive adoption going forward.
And Dan.
Great. Yeah, I'm trying to zag here, but I don't think I can because I agree with everything. But just to echo both points, I think it's just going to be better at the end of the day. It's going to be a better experience, right? Because once we get through this incredibly challenging period, what we've learned is that we can be effective remotely, right? But I don't think that will ever replace, the physical, human reaction we all need to have, right? As much as I'm having fun on this. My I don't know, 8th video call of today. I can't even keep count, right? So people are naturally going to want to come back and physically collaborate. I went back to our office for one meeting like 3 weeks ago, and I immediately sent a message to our team. I'm like, the office is never going away. It was so great to see my colleagues face to face. It was so great to kind of experience that. So I think that's going to come back, but I think it's going to change in a way that's a net positive for everybody. Less commuting, more time with your family, right? More collaboration, more productive relationships. And I think the buildings themselves, the built environment, is going to respond in a way that's going to make the experience of being in that building better than ever before. More consumer grade sort of product type of experiences, better air quality, better comfort, better design spaces, better everything. So I think that's where we end up after all this. And I think it was a place we were already likely going to arrive at, but it's just going to happen way faster if there's any silver lining to this whole thing. So yeah, that's what we think.
So I will follow on. I'll give my own prediction. I predict that for everyone on this call listening in, everybody in our industry, our lives are going to be forever changed, and we will use technology in our buildings and corporations. And my prediction is those who engage and figure out ways to implement things we've talked about will deliver higher value to their buildings and their corporations. They'll get a competitive advantage. Kitty mentioned talent. They'll attract talent. Talent wants to be in those winning places. And for people that ignore it, you probably won't be in the industry longer term, or your company will be at a competitive disadvantage. So now is the time to engage. Having said that, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of people that are interested in prop tech for the first time, and our industry, commercial real estate, in my opinion, touches every human being. Every human being is in the physical space. So I know JLL thinks it's important that during this time we share and work together to propel new ideas and innovation. We're also constantly looking for ways to challenge and evolve our own discussions. So with that in mind, we look forward to continuing discussions and collaborations. We welcome discussions from anyone, whether you're a JLL client or not. So I would encourage everyone watching, reach out to any of us. We would love to debate ideas, discuss challenges, and help create better, safer workplaces for our people as they come back and for their experiences. If you're interested in hearing more about Proptech, join us on Thursday, July 30th at 11:50 Eastern. Or Megan Riley from JLL Spark will lead a discussion on lessons that we've learned from PropTech startups. You'll learn what PropTech should be looking at to become enterprise ready. And if you're a corporation, you'll learn things that we're telling people so that they can be ready to service you. To Dan, Lynn, and Kitty, thank you for joining us today and for sharing your thoughts on space and PropTech. And to everyone else listening, thank you for your time and for joining us.